To be your guide to using Empoleon in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Or is it Welcome Back Wolfpack, Verlis here, and this is how to use Empoleon. Either way, Empoleon is in an interesting spot because it's alright. There's a lot of crazy Pokemon out there, but Empoleon isn't really known as a super competitive Pokemon, and even with the typing, we have all of these resistances. We have an immunity. We have very few neutral hits, but we're weak to fighting, ground, and electric. You really don't want to be weak to ground and electric in Generation 4 meta, and fighting probably gonna be common-ish because of Blissey, so like you have the three weaknesses that kinda really matter, but on those resistances, like there's some quad resist in here. That's nuts, and also the Pokemon deals with fairy types. So the typing on Empoleon, very interesting, and it really just comes down to like, can Empoleon succeed? And it can, but it's not super reliable, but when it pops off, it can actually like work really well. So let's break down how that happens. And my first thought for Empoleon is that you want to go Choice Specs, Special Attacker, because 111 Special Attack, that's respectable. And Empoleon's bulk, also pretty decent, 84, 88, 101. You aren't like super frail, one-shot neutral kind of Pokemon, so you take a hit, and then you return a Choice Spec, Stab, or super effective move back, and then you get the KO. And that's kind of it. Empoleon is mostly a one-for-one Pokemon, and it's very one-dimensional when you're just kind of like looking at straight-up attacker. There are some like tank compositions that I think Empoleon can succeed in, because the idea is you want to use all of these resistances to take less damage than you're dealing to the opponent. So you switch in on a very predictable resisted move with the Empoleon, and then even if they switch out, you have the chance to predict, or just a Choice Spec Surf that's neutral or resisted is probably going to hit harder than the damage you took in. But the problem with Empoleon, like 60 speed, not really outspeeding much, and yeah, you're just like decent special attacker but not sweeper, and you just like kind of get bullied, but you hope you just punch them back a little harder. And then we could also talk about the shenanigans with Empoleon, because I feel like when in doubt, go double team for Generation 4. And that's not me just trying to be a scumbag or an evasion person or something. That's what the Battle Tower taught me. Because it's cheese stuff like this that just catches you off guard in the Battle Tower and your streak is over. So why not just do it to real people? And Empoleon, there's better tanks out there. There's tankier tanks out there. There's Pokemon that just kind of do the same things. But overall, like, who's going to respect Empoleon? Not a lot of people. So like Empoleon hits the field, maybe you catch them in like a Scarf resisted hit, like, oh man, Garchomp got locked into an Iron Head because you brought a Fairy type Pokemon, or something weird like that happens, and you just have like Empoleon as the response. Alright, they have to switch out, or maybe you switch into like a really bulky, like bulked out hit or something, then you just go double team. What they gonna do? You can also trap them in. Like, if they try to challenge the Empoleon, like if they don't have any super effective hits and just a neutral game, they're out the Whirlpool. What they gonna do about it? You know, Whirlpool, take a hit. Double team, take a hit. Hope they miss, rest. And then they're still stuck in on the Whirlpool. Also, Scald is an idea, because if they get burned, well, you're just taking less damage. And I don't know, maybe you like just posture in a very ominous, threatening way. Like, you show the double team Empoleon, and then you hide it for the rest of the battle. Because then they're knowing, like, oh man, if I get, like, stuck with my last Pokemon, and it can't counter Empoleon, I lose to garbage, and that's not acceptable. So, like, you can also just, like, save this, you know, play a 5v6 for a while, and then Empoleon's, like, just the Pokemon that ultimately wins in the endgame. Like I said, there's a lot of other Pokemon that have, like, Whirlpool or double team shenanigans, or, like, just weird stuff going on with this moveset. But yeah, moderately bulky, and Battle Tower strats can save a not very great Pokemon. Mental damage should be respected. After that, just other thoughts, like, you know, this is not just its own moveset. I was trying to, like, think about what happens if you just go, like, max attack, adamant, Empoleon, because people are going to bring it up, like, yo, Torrent Aqua Jet, that sounds pretty good, right? Actually, it's not that great. So, here we have that. Torrent activates because you're low on hit points, attack, adamant, +2 because you can get Swords Dance. So that's kind of like the idea on the Empoleon. It's like, alright, what happens if you go Swords Dance, +2 attack, Aqua Jet on the Torrent? That sounds like a lot of stuff going on. Unfortunately, you are only 86 attack. Unless you're Talonflame, you don't get away with that, and Talonflame only gets away with it because of high base power moves. Aqua Jet, very low base power move, can't really do anything to save it. So there's like, even though Empoleon has a decent physical moveset, it doesn't have the stats to make it work. So it's like, yeah, physical Jolteon. No one talks about that. No one talks about physical Empoleon, but it feels like it's something you want to do. Oh yeah, I forgot about the Defiant ability because hidden abilities are weird. You can't find hidden ability starter Pokemon in the wild, but the ability patch means that every starter Pokemon has access to the hidden ability, and when it's used, you can actually use the hidden ability Pokemon to breed down hidden abilities. It's not like Bottle Caps in that way, but Defiant doesn't really change anything. A +4 Aqua Jet isn't much more threatening than a +2 Aqua Jet. If you're going up against an Intimidate Pokemon, +3, what's your plan against like Gyarados or something, or an Earthquake Salamence? Ability patch makes it weird, but I don't think it changes anything for this Pokemon. You really want that Torrent for the crazy damage boosting. It just never works. So against Pokemon like Garchomp, barely a 2-hit KO, sometimes, most of the time, but it's like, even into a neutral Pokemon, like, alright, we set up against the Gengar. Actually finds a KO. So that's also something you need to know, I guess, that Gengar is half as bulky as a Garchomp. But like, yeah, I guess with this, it's kind of the same idea. You get as much bulk out of it, 254 attack. Might have stumbled in something here. Give me a second. Also, because this relies so heavily on the Torrent for like that boosted damage into the Aqua Jet, people might need to explain that, yeah, Endure also helps out with this. Endure 1 hit points, Torrent, even after taking the hit on Swords Dance. And that's how you get the most damage out of it, but it's still not good. Like, Focus Miss is a thing, but that's why we call it Focus Miss. Thunderbolt, though, this is Specs Gengar Thunderbolt. It's not enough to KO the bulk Empoleon, so you do get the Swords Dance setup. Now, it's not a guaranteed KO, but like slightly favorable chance to one-shot the Gengar after that. And if it's Life Orb, you just take less damage, but probably still puts you into Torrent range or something. Jolteon is an equally kind of frail Pokemon, so we can see level 50, it's slightly tankier and doesn't have the KO. So yeah, it's like Gengar is the frailest Pokemon that you can actually hit that's going to be into you, and it kind of works in the matchups. I mean, Empoleon's weird like that. Now, I did click on this accidentally, but now we can talk about it. Hydro Cannon is just crazy damage. Like, Choice Specs Hydro Cannon, even without Torrent, that's just one-shotting a lot of Pokemon. So yeah, we have the Gengar here, and it's like, okay, so we can tank something on that Thunderbolt, Hydro Cannon, that's a KO. Pretty much that's the idea. It's like, Empoleon's got enough bulk when you max out the hit points to where Hydro Cannon just wins. Now, it does make it to where your opponent has a chance to, like, just set up. Like, that's the gamble, but I like Hydro Cannon or Hyper Beam or some kind of, like, just big, like, hey, this just one-shots.
Regrow your hair in as little as 3 to 6 months. Let me show you how you can take your hair from this to this. Don't fall for the strange and unusual hair remedies. They simply don't work. The easiest and best way to get your hair back is through Hims. With thousands of 5-star reviews, it's a no-brainer why people are switching to this to stop hair loss. Check out the prescription hair loss spray that has finasteride and minoxidil, 2 proven ingredients that stop hair loss and promote hair regrowth. Don't let bad genetics stop you from getting your hair back. Check out Hims today.
Don't compromise quality insurance for savings or your time for this ad. Hit that skip button, or don't, and watch me skip.
You in there? Yes. Yes.
We are farmers. Bum 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 bum.
This just wins the game. So once again, like Empoleon, you hide it. You just kind of leave it there. Everyone's wondering, hey, when's that Empoleon going to come out? And then maybe it just picks up the game because of shenanigans like that. It has the right bulk. It has the right typing. Maybe you can build a team around that typing, and then it's just going to be crazy. I was trying to think about something on the Life Orb, but I don't really see too many situations where even bulk Empoleon finds a way to be a 3-hit KO Pokemon. Because, like, let's say you get a KO, well, then they're just going to bring in a Revenge Pokemon, and then the next time Empoleon hits the field, either has to switch in to take a hit, or it's the Revenge Pokemon itself, And then at that point, again, you're taking a hit into Life Orb recoil, so it might get a little extra out of it, but that's where things get tricky. However, the Life Orb does give you the ability to swap around, where it's like, oh, the opponent's kind of low, so then you go Life Orb on the Flash Cannon or the Surf or something, and then they bring in their last Pokemon, you go Hydro Cannon, that recoil doesn't matter because you win the game, and the Specs damage doesn't really need to tip over the Hydro Cannon because it's just so much damage. So, I don't know, it's going to come down to meta. I don't know what Empoleon is going to, like, counter inside of the meta to be reliable enough, because, like, oh, Garchomp just Earthquakes you and you die, Infernape just Close Combats you and you die. But Hydro Cannon does KO the Skarmory, however, Skarmory has Sturdy now, like, working Sturdy in Gen 4, so I don't know what's going to happen to the meta. Pokemon don't have Toxic baked into their kits, like, every Pokemon doesn't have Toxic anymore, Skarmory has Sturdy, and other weirdness is about to go down. So, I mean, like, okay, so we can see what happens if we change this to a Surf. What is the Surf damage on the Skarmory? Pretty high, it's a 2-hit KO. Unless you get into, like, just weird stuff. Like, now we need to start investing speed EVs, that way we can get enough speed to speed creep into the Skarmory, and also maybe there's going to be, like, some extra jank stuff where Skarmory starts running 20 speed EVs to out-creep the 70 creepers and stuff like that. 60, not enough. Gotta start putting a lot at that point, so 108 will give us enough at level 50, which is going to be the flat rules. So 108 means we do have to knock off a bit from this. Yeah, 148, 252, 108 seems like the way to go on those creeps, and as we saw, like, Choice Spec Surf's still going to be good, and it's going to be for those outspeeds, so that's a thing. Maybe if we're going for that speed, Life Orb is it, and, like, what does Grass Knot get you, and then you have, like, compared to the Hydro Cannon, because again, Life Orb is going to be a complete bop. So like I said, Empoleon really isn't going to be a 3-hit KO that much, so I think giving up some of that bulk just means, like, hey, you still survive some stray super effective hits here, and you just want to be a really reliable 2-hit KO Pokemon. So if you find an outspeed on some weirdness, cool. If you don't, you just take a hit and you 1-for-1 with Hydro Cannon. Like I said, Empoleon, kind of a tricky Pokemon, but as you've seen from the damage, has some surprising slappage. So, things to consider. Like I said, maybe just kind of using as switch in, go for a big trade, switch in, go for a big trade. That could also be pretty successful for the Empoleon. And last but not least, it's not an Empoleon video if we don't talk about the 2009 Pokemon VGC World Champion team that was somehow a dry skin Toxicroak next to a Surf Empoleon with a Wakan Berry, and that's what ended up winning World. Now, unfortunately, this was 2009. The Pokemon competitive scene not really that developed, and the winner was Japanese, so it's harder to, like, find the whole social interaction there as to what the EV spreads were, so we don't really know for sure, but the moveset idea was you surf next to a Toxicroak, and it also has, like, a Focus Sash and does, like, a lot of crazy damage on Cross Chop and has priority on the Sucker Punch and wants to fake you out. So, I mean, like, fake out Toxicroak into Surf Empoleon and then Toxicroak is immune. That's pretty nasty. Also has the Taunt for the anti-setup. It's got a Focus Sash, so it takes a hit. Then it gets healed up a little off the Empoleon. So you just can't, like, straight priority it. You know, you can't just, like, take it out on a basic one-hit priority move at that point, and you also are immune to Surf from the opponent as well. Rain teams were pretty big at the time, so yeah, I'm guessing, like, what do you do? Like, 85 speed, really? Was it that? If you have Focus Sash, you're not really going for bulk, I guess. I don't know, Adamant Nature, just outspeed some things. Was it the Jolly? Like, do you even need Adamant? If you're just going, like, Sucker Punch, Surf, Empoleon, boom, that's a KO. It was also backed up.
Hi, my name is Michael, and as you know, recently I got back on Hinge. So I've been going on some dates, meeting some really great people. It's time to go on a second date, so I want to go grab some flowers. Come along with me. Hinge has been great, especially in a new city where I really don't know anybody. It's been nice to be able to go out, meet some people that are my age, and go on some good dates. So during our first few dates, she had mentioned how much she likes flowers. So I decided to just get a couple. I couldn't really pick which ones I wanted, so I went one of each of the best colors there. So yeah, let's put them together. All right, got my flowers here, all put together in a nice bouquet. So ready to head out for a date. Wish me luck. Thanks.
By a Ludicolo. So Ludicolo comes in, it sets up the Rain Dance. That's going to heal Toxicroak more. That's going to boost the power of Surf. That's going to give Ludicolo the Swift Swim. Ludicolo is now faster than you, doing a lot of damage, backed up by KOs on the Sucker Punch. It's an interesting little strategy. Fun fact, I beat the 2009 World Champion on Pokemon Battle Revolution after Worlds. So that was kind of that made me kind of salty because I didn't have the means of making it to World Championships, and my team ended up winning against this one. So yeah, the moral of the story is that Generation 4 is weird, and there's a lot of fun stuff you can do with it. After that, Hydro Cannon slaps. Priority Attack just has a better Pokemon to use for like Swords Dance plus 2 priority KOs. If you want to be a troll, go for it, and surprisingly powerful on that special attack from the Empoleon. Like, I wonder if there is a world or a team composition where you have a ground-type Pokemon, a flying-type Pokemon, and a ghost-type Pokemon, and somehow your game revolves around the Empoleon. What if it revolved around this? What if there's like a Leftovers involved or something weird, like Protect Leftovers, that way you can get an 1/8 of your health back after a switch, and then switch again, and then just kind of like set up on the opponent? I don't know. There could be something with the Empoleon, but also I haven't like fully re-looked at the entire Generation 4 decks compared to now with the new updated movesets and what some Pokemon can get away with. But it's most like there's a lot of good here, but the stats hold it back. The moveset is pretty like straightforward, and those weaknesses are very unforgiving to like, and it's mostly the speed. So like Empoleon doesn't have too much autonomy, but if someone can unlock how to play around it, that'd be pretty cool. And it also makes me super upset. Like, this is the perfect Fan Fridays Pokemon. If you can actually get like 3 perfect predictions for your team and then get like 2 KOs on an Empoleon and then you're up like 1 Pokemon in the battle, that'd be Fan Fridays worth. That'd be me just going like, hey, they did it. They saw the thing that I just kind of suggested, but I don't care for Empoleon. Like, if you're an Empoleon fan out there, there might be some hope for you, and I want you to discover that. But I couldn't, but that's like it. That's where we are, and I'm like, that'd be like the coolest Fan Fridays thing ever. But as you can see, there's something to work with here. I don't know if it's good, bad, or just comment down below if you enjoy the video. Leave a like as well, share with your friends, all that fun stuff. So you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching. Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and this is how to use Infernape in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Infernape is a monster in this game, because Blissey is popular, Skarmory is popular, and Infernape has a response to both of them. And that is the weird thing about Infernape. It is kind of fast, pretty fast, but not like the fastest Pokemon, so it does have to worry about getting outsped. But 104 attack, 104 special attack, and access to high base power moves on the firefighting Pokemon is pretty nasty. But first, let's talk about that typing a bit more. So you have flying weakness, ground weakness, water, psychic weaknesses, good amount of resistances, and then a lot of neutral. But as we saw, you are a very frail boy, so even those strong neutral hits can threaten you on a KO, especially after a little bit of life orb damage. But that's kind of the idea behind Infernape. You are the glassiest of glass cannons. Your job is to go out there, claim some Pokemon, and then go down. You remove the biggest threat from the opponent's team, maybe the biggest threat and then some, where you're like a really good cleanup Pokemon, a lot of weird stuff going on with the Infernape, and then that's kind of how you get your job done. But the coverage also just means you have so many good options. So yeah, Overheat, doesn't matter if you're not invested in the special attack. Also, this is why we go for the naive nature, plus speed, minus special defense. You don't really survive anything anyways, so I don't think it really matters if you're going between the naive nature or the other one. Hasty nature, I don't think there's really any damage calculations that change too many things about the Infernape. Maybe if Skarmory starts running like Drill Peck or something, that's why you'd want the naive over it. Because now, like, that's the thing. Like, the craziest thing, I still don't know what's going to happen inside of the metagame for Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, is Sturdy Skarmory. How's that going to change the game? Because it seems like it could do some pretty crazy stuff. So yeah, you have that Overheat there, just in case there's, like, physical walls or something. You just blow up a Pokemon with that. Special attack goes down, doesn't matter because it just does so much damage. Then you just transition to stab and coverage and high base power and just being strong. So that's going to be the Infernape. And now this is where things get weird and messy for Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, because the ability patch kind of ruins everything with how hacking and cheat supporting and toxic the Pokemon community is. It really depresses me. I hope we get an official battle simulator, but the ability patch further complicates things because you can actually use the ability patch, get a hidden ability on the Pokemon, and then breed it for the hidden ability to have a chance of passing down. Yeah, like, Iron Fist Infernape is a thing, but most of them are just going to be through the result of cheating, but you can't really do anything about it at this point, so it's a thing, and I guess we gotta acknowledge it, and that's a much better ability because you're really not going to get any mileage out of Blaze. Now, even though Poison Jab sounds like a punching move, these are the moves that are affected by Iron Fist, and Poison Jab isn't one of them. Now, Infernape does get access to the Thunder Punch and a few other interesting things, but that's where we start getting like different move sets and other ideas. You really want this because I want to deal with fairy type Pokemon on the Poison Jab. I want to Earthquake because Earthquake is just strong, and then Close Combat is going to be good. However, like flying type Pokemon, what do we do to them? Not much. So, I mean, like, that's where Thunder Punch does become an option. Even though it's like, oh, I got the Earthquake, I want the Earthquake. You might not actually find too many situations to use it in. Even if you go up against something like the Empoleon, just Thunder Punch it instead, and with the Iron Fist giving you bonus damage, like, not going to be too far off. So that's kind of an idea behind the Infernape. It's mostly about meta. Whatever the meta has, Infernape needs to have a moveset that adapts to the most likely things it's going to be facing, and Infernape has a lot of moves that it can just kind of throw into its moveset. On top of that, you also get the Power Up Punch. So there's some weird reality where you go Power Up Punch, get the slight damage boost from the Iron Fist, but then it turns into a +1, and then you just got KOs on everything, because like +1 close combat. If you're outspeeding, you're just winning at that point. And then some other things going on. So yeah, the Infernape, I don't think you can get rid of Overheat though, because you just really need that coverage against the Skarmory, unless Skarmory ends up being bad somehow because the meta is just wacky. Then that kind of opens up some moveset options on the Infernape, but mixed Infernape is what makes it so threatening, because you really can't throw something to tank into it, because it's going to have the coverage, or just going to overwhelm you and beat you down through damage. So the Infernape can be nasty. Of course, this is not a moveset right here, but also shows other things that Infernape wants to do. You have Swords Dance. So, Swords Dance set up on the Focus Sash. What you gonna do about it? And then like Iron Fist, Swords Dance, Mach Punch, sounds kind of cool. Nasty Plot. Like, you're just chilling here with a Grass Knot and an Overheat, and then it goes the other way to where you have the Close Combat as the mixed attack. So you still just go Nasty Plot, Overheat, Grass Knot, Close Combat, and what can they do? You can't throw a Chansey into that because, yeah, you're just going to get nuked by the close combat, and even the +0 overheat is scary, and if the +2 happens because of Focus Sash, like, yeah, what can they, like, you eventually just run out of options against the Infernape. So that's what makes Infernape so scary, that you can just not have options against it. Now, again, I don't know where the meta is going, so I don't know about the responses for it, but as you can see, like, Gastrodon probably handles this really well. Unless it's like a Swords Dance setup, because then Gastrodon has a hard time chasing the Infernape, but just throwing like 2 Scalds from a Gastrodon into Infernape might be a KO because Infernape is so frail. And then you can also just pack the taunt, where it's like, oh, you taunt Skarmory, they go for Stealth Rocks gets blocked, Overheat, and then Sturdy kicks in, but then what can they do about it? Because now they're still taunted, so they don't get to do anything after the Sturdy. They try to hit you with something. Maybe there's like a weird Brave Bird trade on the Infernape Skarmory matchup, and people start teching into that. Cause that'd be really wacky. It's like, okay, Skarmory, Brave Bird's Infernape on that taunt, instead of like just getting baited into Stealth Rocks or something. But you don't even want to stay in. You just want to like hard switch out because Infernape wrecks you so hard. Yeah, it's gonna be a weird game. Then there's also Substitute. If Infernape gets behind a Substitute, I don't know how you get around that. Like, I don't know. Also, just on like an offensive set, like it's just gonna keep beating you down. And if you just like miss one little turn against the Infernape and you don't have a hard response on your team, you're losing a Pokemon. Like, at the very least, you're losing a Pokemon. Then you need like a Revenge Starmie to come in or something weird, because that is the downfall of Infernape at the 108 speed. Gets out Scarfed really easily, gets out Swept really easily, but that's kind of why you also want to play around the Infernape. You set this Pokemon up to where it is your ultimate in-game sweeper. That's like, okay, Infernape's your last Pokemon, they have 3 weak Pokemon, anything that's faster than Infernape is just out of the game, you win. That's just, game's over. It's a 1 versus 3, Infernape takes it. Now, you don't really need to be cheesy or weird with the Infernape, but maybe if like Infernape becomes so standard and the counters become common and people just know what to expect, throw out some weirdness into the opponent. Counter Focus Sash, that's a KO. Then you have Acrobatics Focus Sash. Fun thing about this, you just speed tie into another Infernape and then Acrobatics is going to be a KO. You win that speed tie, now you're just 2 for 1, and then you still have an Infernape that can get a hit off on that 1 hit points before it goes down. That's going to be pretty spooky for the opponent. Got close combat. Flare Blitz, if you're at 1 hit point, you use the Flare Blitz, you're taking yourself with it, but that's still a lot of damage. Like, Infernape is going down with Valor at that point, and it's probably, like, if it doesn't KO the opponent's Pokemon, it's just going down anyways. So really not too much there. But at the same time, like, unless you already have a way of dealing with Skarmory, or unless, again, somehow Skarmory just doesn't work in this meta, Overheat, kind of need it on the Infernape. Now, the interesting thing about this moveset is that Flying, Fire, and Fighting has perfect type coverage. So you're not going to be resisted or immune by anything, and I tested that on a Gen 8 calculator, so I don't see any weirdness that doesn't make it work for Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl. Yeah, it works, and you just go into high attack, high speed, high base power, perfect coverage on an Infernape that has a Focus Sash and can, like, do weird stuff. You don't even always have to, like, counter Focus Sash. You just go close combat, eat the hit, close combat, acrobatics, overheat for coverage. You just get 2 KOs or more. 2+ Pokemon right here. Crazy stuff. And then we also have some other moves. So I kind of talked about these. Thunder Punch, Mach Punch, Fake Out, Grass Knot. Grass Knot, pretty much just want that on special Infernape, but I'm not like a huge fan of Nasty Plot unless like setup becomes a really big deal. It's like, okay, Nasty Plot Infernape gets kind of weird. Fake Out, if you want to run priority, Fake Out is an option. Like, there's been weird games of Pokemon back in Generation 4 or 5 or even 6 where it's like a Fake Out Pokemon comes in, hits me for like strong damage on the Fake Out, and then like switches out, and then like appears later on in the battle, and then hits me with a Fake Out and like switches out. So it's not gonna like be KOs or like a hard securing Pokemon. And also, like, Infernape, it can just Fake Out to break the sash without any shenanigans, and then go into a close combat and just KO you and then trade that way. But also have the ability, like a 1 hit point Infernape where there's no Stealth Rocks or hazards on the field, it just swaps out and that Fake Out just becomes a threat again. It's not the best moveset option, but I do want to make the note that out of the countless thousands of Pokemon battles I've been in, there's been a handful where the Fake Out weirdness is the reason I lost, because I just got beaten up on it. I just lost too many health and turns for free, And that could also be another thing, like 20-minute timer. Timer stalling is a complete scumbag move, and the unsporting conduct effectively removes the win, but even in like a legit battle, like that could just cost a couple turns that might end up mattering even in just kind of a scuffed game or something. It is for doubles, so I mean like you run Infernape in doubles with like Fake Out, Focus Sash, and then the movesets we've been talking about, and that's going to be really strong. But I'm talking like singles Fake Out. Again, it's not that great, but if you find the 1 in 1,000 time where it's actually the only way to winning a battle, feels pretty good, feels pretty crazy. Talked about Thunder Punch, Mach Punch, Iron Fist shenanigans. Yeah, it's like I said, whatever the meta's throwing, that's what you make your moveset. You got a couple different flavors on the Life Orb, Focus Sash, and then some tech. Maybe setup, I don't know, but that is going to be the Infernape. So Infernape can be an unstoppable monster, but it can also go very wrong the second you get outsped. Scarf, going to be just the biggest enemy of Infernape, and getting sloppy with your play as well. Like if they have a Togekiss on the team, and you just throw out a close combat, and Togekiss switches into that, you just have to switch out. Like Togekiss just got in for free right there, and if there's also like some weird stuff to where Infernape doesn't really want to switch, you just kind of lose your Infernape right there. Or you have to give up your Sash to trade some damage. The damage calculations onto Togekiss also start getting weird. So if anything, this is just a PSA for Infernape players that even if you have the Sash, you can't challenge the Togekiss if it goes in, because close combat, quad resist, you're just not dealing any damage, and even Iron Fist Thunder Punch, 68%. So it can eat the close combat into the Thunder Punch because Togekiss is just fat and it will survive pretty much any non-stab super effective hit in the game. And then, yeah, Air Slash is just gonna do you in right there. Even the Life Orb doesn't change anything. So the only way this works is that, like, okay, you tank out the Air Slash with the Focus Sash, but let's say some shenanigans go down, Life Orb, not enough to one-shot on the Thunder Punch. So yeah, Scarf Pokemon just eat your lunch on Infernape, and any Pokemon outspeed, like a Starmie, or have like good switching options, can't really do too much about them, and there's also like other weird ways to play around it. So it goes both ways. Infernape can easily be useless or negated in your team, and then you're just like kind of giving up some free stuff, and you have to know what to sack. Like, do I sack the Infernape when my team just gets countered by their team? Or do I just kind of sack 3 of my Pokemon to take out their 1 or 2 or 3 sweepers, and then Infernape now gets free reign? So Infernape, very win condition heavy Pokemon, but if you misplay, like if you just slip up on the Infernape, your entire game is lost to that. So crazy Pokemon. We're going to see how it goes. I think there could also just be a lot of cat and mouse depending on how healthy the meta is. Like, if Skarmory is super popular, Infernape might start running around all over the place, but then, like, what happens if it's just Skarmory plus, like, 4 Pokemon with 110 speed plus? How does that meta look? I don't know. If Infernape rotates out of the meta, do people slow it down a bit and just start playing more bulk and more, like, just aggressive, fat attackers, and then Infernape finds a way in as a cleanup sweeper? What's the composition around Infernape that lets it succeed even more? Got some weird stuff going on, but that is the Pokemon, and it's still pretty strong. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.
Baldness runs in my family. I thought I was next. My dad went bald in his 30s. So did my uncles. Even my older brother started thinning before he turned 28. I figured it was just in my genes. Nothing I could do about it. Then I found these finasteride and minoxidil chews from Hims. They're once-a-day chewables with 2 ingredients, finasteride and minoxidil. Both are doctor-trusted ingredients to stop hair loss and regrow hair. Plus, they've got a proprietary supplement blend that supports hair health from the inside out. No messy foam, no complicated routine, just 1 chew a day. You can start seeing results in 3 to 6 months. Now my hairline's holding strong, and for the first time, I might be the only guy in the family who dodged the bald gene. Thousands of guys are using treatments through Hims to fight hair loss, and it's working. Don't wait until it's too late. Start growing your hair back through Hims.
It's beginning to look a lot like savings during the holiday sale at Furniture Row. Stop in today because everything is on sale. Plus, get 48 months, no interest financing. Shop the largest selection at the lowest prices guaranteed. Happy holidays from Furniture Row.
Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and this is how to use Torterra. Now, the funny thing is, the evolution of memes over the many, many years I've been doing this. Normally, it's just how to use blank. You don't. But, because we have Invincible, now you say, that's the neat thing. You don't. And Torterra falls into that category, but this is why the Verlisify channel is unlike any other. We try to find the best moveset for every Pokemon, that if you are a Torterra fan, if you want to make the underappreciated work, that's what we're here for, and we're going to try to make this Pokemon succeed in the game. So if you enjoy the video, don't forget to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and share. But the biggest problem with Torterra is that it's a slow tank, and it also has a 4x weakness, and a common one at that. We're going to be dealing with Dragonite. We're going to be dealing with Garchomp. There's going to be flying-type Pokemon all over the place. Ice is going to be common. And no matter how much you set up on the Torterra, one ice-threatening Pokemon is either going to force you out or be a KO, and there's nothing you can do about it. Also, the resistances of Grass Ground. What are you going to do with that? Like, any Grass-type Pokemon gives you the ground, and the Rock is whatever. Ooh, Electric Immunity, like, you just take hits. Like, you just soak up a lot of damage on it. And 95, 109, 85, you're just like, you're better off just running 2 dedicated tanks. One physical tank, one special tank. And Torterra doesn't get to succeed as either of those, and by splitting it, you're also not finding a lot of success on the Torterra. However, whenever a Pokemon encounters adversity, we can just open up Old Faithful, Curse Amnesia, and or Stockpile. Set up tanks. If the opponent doesn't respect you, or if something weird happens, and like Torterra comes in the perfect revenge situation, and just starts setting up and being unkillable, if they don't have any ice on the team, and then you go Amnesia, you win the game, potentially. Like, that's just how Torterra works, and that's why we go for this kind of crazy little mixed up EV spread right here, because with Amnesia, we're going to be gaining special defense a lot faster, so we don't have to invest as hard into it. But it's like Amnesia, boom, 440 defense, and then a Citrus Berry. So here's the idea. Take a hit, Amnesia. Take a hit, Citrus Berry activates, Amnesia. Take a hit, Synthesis, Synthesis, Amnesia. Now you're +6 special defense. Also, depending, like, if you get that perfect switch prediction, like, okay, special ain't working from the opponent. Yeah, Jolteon can't do anything to the Torterra, so you're predicting a physical switch, Curse. So it's the same thing. Curse, Curse, Citrus Berry, Synthesis, Curse, Amnesia, and then you're just kind of like looking for that end where it's like, all right, I'm +3 defense, +3 attack, +2 special defense. I have Synthesis, I have Shell Armor, so you can't even crit me out of this one. What can they do? There isn't anything they can do. After that, they slowly just have the life drained from their eyes because +6 on Curse is coming. That's going to be a +6 crunch. It can't be immune by anything. Nah, Dark can be walled, but it's like, okay, at +6, you're doing 4x damage. 109 base attack, gonna be pretty good. So now Crunch is just 2 3-hit KO on everything. 24 PP, Synthesis. Like, that's a win. It's hard to get Torterra there. And there's also other just filthy setup Pokemon in the game. But maybe in Gen 4, reduced decks with meta shenanigans going on, Torterra makes it work. And then we have roughly the same idea with a different coat of paint. So for the EVs on this one, it's going to be similar to this, mixed in with some meta. There's like not as crazy physical attacking going on. You can trim a little bit and then go into the special defense, because Stockpile is going to boost everything at the same time. Also, that makes Stockpile a lot safer. That if you just go Stockpile, 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 doesn't matter if they switch, you're just going to be gaining on them. That's going to be pretty good. And instead of the Curse, we have the Swords Dance. So it's like Stockpile, 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 Chesto, Resto, Swords Dance, Crunch, Rest, it doesn't matter. Like, once you hit 3 Stockpiles on a tanky Pokemon like the Torterra with these kind of defenses, like, you take hits, and then you wake up, and then you're able to do damage or set up, and then you go back to sleep, and then you take hits, and then you do damage, set up, and then you rest again. That's just the power of setup tanks. That is what I've devoted my entire Pokemon career to, and it's worked out pretty well. It's made me one of the best Pokemon battlers in the world because I just understand win conditions and like opportunities like very few other people, and then making my channel based off of setup tanking and just kind of my ideas from the early days of Pokemon has turned into a 6-figure salary playing Pokemon for a living. So that's why if anything has like a Stockpile opportunity or anything has a Curse Amnesia or like some weirdness where you can just kind of squeak it in and then go for that setup sweep, you can fish for it. And if it turns out to be one of your Pokemon or a Pokemon that works in the meta, you might have just made a Pokemon that no one respects into something that's going to win you games. Cool. Now, if setup sweepers aren't your style, by the way, this is objectively not stalling. This is progressing the game state. You are eventually just going to make it to the point where you sweep and win on an unkillable Pokemon. So it's not like, oh, I don't like that because it's stall. Well, it isn't stall, so that's just kind of something to take into consideration on Torterra. But if you don't like setup sweeping because it has like a lot of complicated game states and win conditions, I haven't looked into Torterra versus like every other grass type Pokemon in the game or something. But it's like max hit points, max defense. I don't know where it stands and like the ranking of like pure defensive tank Pokemon or how it stands up. Like, there is Weavile, there is Mamoswine, so it's not like you're going to physical out some ice type Pokemon. The fire matchups get weird, the flying bug, especially as like a ground type, you don't really have too many responses with the flying Pokemon as well. So I don't know like how proficient it is or like what the comparison like Venusaur versus Torterra as a physical tank or tank Pokemon with Leech Seed Synthesis. But if you want to go for it, Torterra, Leftovers, Leech Seed, you protect, you get tons of health back. Inside of that, you Synthesis to kind of get a little bit of extra Leech Seed damage. Then Earthquake, 109 stab attack. You don't want the bold nature, you want the impish nature. And then boom, like you just throw hits, and Leech Seed, protect, Leech Seed, Earthquake might just, and then protect again, that's a KO or something, and then you're still healthy, and you might just be too fat for any of the opponent's Pokemon to take out, or instead of protect, stockpile. If you have the opportunity, take it. Like stockpile, Synthesis, Leech Seed, stockpile, Synthesis, unkillable, Earthquake for coverage. I also haven't like looked into exactly like, is there a Pokemon that is immune to both ground and Leech Seed? A flying grass Pokemon, Tropius. Also, this is a hard life against just grass type Pokemon because Earthquake is going to be resisted or neutral into a grass poison typing. But at least you can't get spored by Breloom. So, I mean, like, that could be just the value of Torterra. That maybe physical Torterra, you just sit it in there if your team is super weak to Breloom. In which case, you wouldn't want the Earthquake. You would actually want something that counters or deals with Breloom a little better. Now, since Breloom is fighting, the Crunch doesn't really work. So, I mean, maybe you just Earthquake it because Breloom is frail or something. I don't like Iron Tail. Heavy Slam probably doesn't have, like, the craziest damage numbers. Yeah, you don't have a lot to work with on the Torterra, so I mean, maybe that is it. You just go for the 5-hit KO on the Earthquake because they don't have any.
Sign up directly on the app. Choose your own hours.
Get paid to deliver on your time.
There are opportunities in over 7,000 cities.
Keep 100% of your tips.
Download the DoorDash driver app and get started today.
Options against you, and if you like force some kind of switch or weirdness, boom, stockpile. Now the new Pokemon can't even deal with you unless it's an ice type. Torterra might actually find quite a few ways to succeed in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, so keep an eye out for that. Like, don't discount this Pokemon from your team depending on what is stopping. Like, if you're like, man, if only I had a grass or a ground type Pokemon to deal with this, that could just be bulky enough to do something and then sustain. Like, I just need to stall out a bit more, you know. There we go, Torterra, boom. After that, I was trying to think about like fun, more sweepy Torterra. Endure, Lychee Berry, Rock Polish on Fat. Like, okay, so you go Rock Polish, you take a hit. After that, you Endure to take the second hit. Lychee Berry gives you attack, so now you're +1 attack, +2 speed. This might actually be the case for Overgrow, because 1 hit point's Overgrow. That's going to be strong, so Seed Bomb is going to, like, get that extra damage. It does get access to the Wood Hammer, but Recoil means you die at 1 hit point, so not a good idea. There's also always the weird math between, like, average Bullet Seed damage potential versus the Seed Bomb. Now, Seed Bomb at +1 probably doesn't find a lot of, like, crazy one-hit KOs. So, like, Bullet Seed RNG is a 2-hit KO, Seed Bomb's a 2-hit KO, unless Bullet Seed RNG becomes a 1-hit KO, in which case Bullet Seed might be the better choice. That is a school of thought. You see it with things like the Rock Slide versus the Rock Blast, also like Breloom running Bullet Seed or other Pokemon that can run the Bullet Seed, taking that as an option, because the odds of getting unlucky, it's like, okay, back-to-back 2 Bullet Seeds. Can happen, can cost you games, but if you're just kind of going for average luck on the 3 Bullet Seeds, well, it's slightly less damage, and then everything after that just becomes more damage, and there's those situations where it's like, oh, the 5 Bullet Seed wins me the game. Oh, I got the 15% chance for that. So there's a 15% chance it hits 4 times, 15 it hits 5 times, but 35% chance it hits 2 times. However, that means 65% of the time you're doing comparable to more Seed Bomb damage. Again, that is a thing that people take, and it could be the difference, and it could lead to some shenanigans. But also, you just have Earthquake, 100 base power, stab, +1, 109 attack. You go and clap them with that, and yeah, you could do it. If that's your flavor of Torterra, fine. I don't know what it beats, but if it beats something, that's cool. And then, like I said, it's mostly like, oh, you catch them off guard, set up tank. You could run this, a Snorlax, a Hippo, another other setup tank Pokemon, and if this one works because reasons, all right, I'm down with that. So there we go, guys. That is how you use Torterra. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Hope you have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching. Well, welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and this is how to use Sceptile in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. This Pokemon fascinates me because Sceptile isn't really seen as that good of a Pokemon, but the stats are good. We're talking about Gen 4 meta. We don't have any Gen 5 plus shenanigans going on, so 105 special attack, that's good again. 120 speed, that's incredible again. Like 100 is now like the good place to be. And 120 means you're just beating out everything, and that includes Gengar and Starmie, so shenanigans are going to keep on going. I've already used shenanigans twice, 3 times, let's go. So, if you enjoy the video, don't forget to leave a like, share it with your friends, comment your thoughts down below on the moveset. Why doesn't Sceptile work? Or, why does Sceptile work, but no one knows that it works? Let's go and break it down. So here's the straightforward idea. You go Unburden, we already saw this on Drifblim, you lose your item, your speed is doubled, hey, we got some baked-in synergy, which is always what makes Unburden super good. So you use Leaf Storm, go for White Herb, all lowered stats go back to 0, while Leaf Storm lowers your special attack by 2, instant item consumption, very powerful move for free, Unburden double speed, now Sceptile is insane. However, speed tiers. You want the Modest Nature for the most damage possible, but the Modest Nature starts backfiring pretty hard, because neutral 120 makes you just faster than 105. Actually, no, it's a speed tie for 105. And then you're slower than 106. And that means we gotta go and break down the speed for Gen 4 Pokemon. After you scroll through the wall of Arceus, let's see, you are here. So, I mean, we got Electabuzz that you're speed tying with, Kadabra, Rapidash, Mismagius, Manectric, Lopunny, and then you lose to Infernape. Which means you can't go for Modest. Gotta get the most out of your speed, but then what's the point of Unburden unless you set up the Unburden before Sweeper comes in, which is definitely doable, especially in a revenge situation where you bring in Sceptile after getting KO'd and then you get to guarantee it. But it means if there's like a Sweeper already on the field, like Infernape KOs one of your Pokemon, you can't bring in the Modest Sceptile on it, so you have to give up 10% of your damage, and now you're fast, and then you're just ungodly fast. So the hope is, you use your Leaf Storm, you proc all that cool stuff, and then the opponent brings in a Scarf, but you just win. So this is like already baked in kind of crazy Pokemon weirdness. Let's go to damage calculation and see what that means. So Leaf Storm against Garchomp with a modest nature is a 2-hit KO. The game is weird, and it depends on what has what. I don't know if Fire Fang is actually viable on Garchomp in Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. So yeah, because of tutors and TMs and weirdness and TRs and whatever, there is no Fire Fang on the Garchomp. Probably doesn't want to run it anyways. So we're getting in, like, the Pokemon's weird. 70-65, you're just having a bad time in general, which means we need to find like a real Garchomp moveset. Not one of these like random trash Smogon ones that's recommended or whatever. There we go. Scarf Outrage, and you're KO'd. So, I mean, even if, like, you do something cool and you get the Unburden going, and then Garchomp hits the field, you outspeed the Scarf, but then you don't KO Garchomp and then you go down, and somehow the Dragon Pulse is just, like, pitiful damage. I mean, it makes sense when you do the math. Leaf Storm is 130 base power, Stab pushes that to 195, Dragon Pulse doubled is 170. So, yeah, it makes sense that's less damage, but I mean, like, but a 105 special attacking Pokemon hitting a super effective hit, or one of the most powerful same type of boosted moves in the game, not enough. Now this does change against other Pokemon, like let's go into the Jolteon. We don't need anything because Jolteon doesn't really invest. We go to level 1, or we go from level 100 to level 50, and Leaf Storm still not doing it, and that's on the modest nature, so things look worse on the timid. That kind of shows what the Sceptile does. So if we change this out to a Giga Drain, against most Pokemon, the goal is Leaf Storm, proc, coverage move, and then you're just KOing. But if they can survive and KO you just off of raw damage or coverage, then you're having a bad time. But if you survive, you're a 1+ Pokemon sometimes, and very hard to catch. I don't know. And then we go to the coverage. Alright, so special attack is our highest stat. What do we get out of the special attack? That's it. Leaf Storm, Dragon Pulse seems to be the only coverage, and then Giga Drain makes sense, but after that we got Dragon Breath, Hyper Beam, but if you're doing that, you might as well go for like the Frenzy Plant, and then your triple Grass 1 coverage that doesn't really do much of anything. Okay, Swords Dance Sceptile, what happens here? Because now we got other synergies to bake in. Swords Dance, we're frail, we get KO'd, Unburden kicks in, and because of that, we actually don't have to worry about getting outsped on a modest nature or a non-speed boosting nature or something. So we go Adamant, Swords Dance, boom, all that cool stuff. Focus Sash activates, Unburden activates, we're +2 attack, we go for Stab Leaf Blade, and, well, first off, we die to Rough Skin on Garchomp or any kind of priority move, but still not a KO. And if we just go to another Pokemon again. Now, the Jolteon has more special defense than defense. And when we bring this back in line... Okay, so we start finding the KOs there. And then we just need to start, like, splashing in other Pokemon, I guess. Let's start throwing out some other Pokemon you might encounter. So we have the Azelf. That gets KO'd by the +2 Adamant Leaf Blade. I don't see any shenanigans going down. So 75-70 isn't safe. 85-70 isn't safe. 85-80 starts to get safe, so it's going to be like the 80-80 or something that is mostly not safe and has a high chance of getting KO'd, and yeah, so whatever Pokemon are running that, generally sweepers are going to kind of be under that, but some just have like weird bulk built in. Okay, so it's one of those things where you go through a lot, and then some Pokemon still just beat you, which isn't good, but it seems you can still coverage out well, so it comes down to meta. If this breaks meta, like just starts winning against like Pokemon that are in the meta, then I think that's viable. However, Focus Sash is a big liability, because if you don't get one shot, well then you're not getting Unburdened, and then weird things are happening, and now you're stuck with the Adamant and you're speed tying 105s. Rough. Looking at the coverage, physical coverage on Sceptile kind of nuts. Crunch, fighting, ground, you just get Earthquake? Okay, that means we get to take out Starmie, we get to take out Gengar, we get to take out Infernape with the Earthquake? Okay, let's go. And then we got some other weird things we can throw at the Rock Slide. So like Drain Punch is here because like, oh yeah, it gets Drain Punch. We don't want to use that because Earthquake is already hitting Steel and Rock super effective and you're not adding into any coverage. And if a Flying type Pokemon comes in, you're kind of F'd here, so don't. And then that's where you can also have the Rock Slide. So if Charizard starts getting popular, this wrecks Rock Slide, the +2 from this into something. Let's go and check out those numbers. I mean, Swellow gets ruined by the +2 Rock Slide, so that's pretty good. Good way of slowing down that Pokemon. Maybe just like eating some kind of hit. I don't. Yeah, the Air Slash is a KO, so that would be a way of baiting out the Focus Sash shenanigans. And then we just need to use Pokemon Showdown to our advantage. Like, okay, where is a fault here? Where can something go wrong? Well, if we go back to Swellow, that's a 60-60. So we need to find like a bulky, maybe spooky flying type Dragonite. All right, what do we do to the Dragonite? This is where things are probably going to get ugly though, because we've already seen like comparable things. So Dragonite, blank set. Who cares about multi-scale? Drop it to 50. That's actually a surprising amount of damage. When we were like watching the other neutral hits and stuff. Breakdown. So I mean, you don't have the direct KO, but it means something gets done here and you really hurt the Dragonite, and it really feels that off the multi-scale break. And then if you have an Ice Shard follow-up, alright. So Sceptile maybe takes a Pokemon. If Dragonite's the response, just kind of bulk out on the Dragon Dance and take a gamble. At least it gets something back. And if there's Stealth Rocks, then that's just also a KO. So shenanigans inbound on the Sceptile for this moveset, but this is unreliable. However, you actually just outspeed Pokemon like Dragonite and other setup Pokemon. So the game is weird. Like that's what you need to know right now. The game is weird. You need the Swords Dance. You kind of need this coverage. The Earthquake is nasty. If you can find a way to go like Endure, because the Endure is going to guarantee 1 health and then guarantee some kind of berry activation. So Endure Lychee Berry plus Swords Dance. So like Swords Dance, maybe take a hit, like if you know it's a survivable hit or the Focus Sash would go wrong otherwise. Boom. If not, you just like Endure, at least get a +1. That's actually where things start to fall off, I guess. Like you need the +2 into the +3. +3 Leaf Blade starts threatening a lot more. I don't know. Swords, like that's what I mean. The Focus Sash is risky, but as you can see, it pays off against a fair amount of Pokemon. This is more reliable, but the coverage sacking, kinda ugly. I don't know. What else can Sceptile do? Let's go and take a look at just using it as a sweeper. 120 speed. What do you accomplish here? Again, kind of weird stuff. Giga Drain, Grass Knot, because it might be more damage than Giga Drain sometimes. Frenzy Plant, just to like, just take out one Pokemon. Like if it's Sceptile and some kind of fat Pokemon in the end game, you want to use that Frenzy Plant and just win, because then the game doesn't matter. Go for like some kind of cleanup sweeping, because Sceptile with that 120 speed, strong cleanup sweeper, doesn't have like brutal KO damage. If everyone's missing some amount of hit points, then this is actually just strong. Also, weird thing on like the Unburden, it's like, yeah, you can still go like Jolly Nature here. So go Jolly Nature, Endure Overgrow, get rid of Swords Dance, and like Leaf Blade +1 attack, Overgrow, shenanigans, but then that really doesn't do much for the Earthquake Rock Slide unless it's a super hit. But Super Earthquake, Super Rock Slide +1 still kind of strong, more reliable. So like keep Overgrow on the table in some situations, because again, you got the 120 speed. So with this Overgrow, if you take a strong neutral hit but that doesn't KO you, like anything weaker than a Garchomp Outrage, then you just survive, and now you're like overgrowing, and then the Giga Drain Overgrow interaction gets weird because it knocks you out of it. However, the healing from Giga Drain is going to keep Life Orb from potentially KOing you if you're like less than 10%. Grass Knot still damage, Frenzy Plant, Dragon Pulse, etc. So really, this is just like cleanup, trading, and just being strong. Like if water gives your team trouble, this is going to cover pretty much all of it. Like you just come in, Giga Drain, Starmie, KO. And these numbers kind of give an idea as to what the Sceptile can get away with. So I mean, now we're looking at a neutral hit being like 60-something%. Let's go back to the Jolteon. weird stuff happens because you survive the Shadow Ball, but then the Giga Drain is going to heal up a lot of that damage, and then even after Life Orb and another Shadow Ball, you barely survive, and then you Giga Drain, and then you KO Jolteon. And when they bring in their next Pokemon, I'm pretty sure you're an Overgrow, but the exact numbers get weird because we have the damage rolls, we have the healing damage rolls. Jolteon also isn't going to be taking all of this damage like twice, because if it only has 40% health left, you're healing off that 40%, so you're not getting these numbers twice, and then Life Orb comes into play. But I mean, this is one of those situations where it's like, yo, you're going to be at like 20%, and then you're going to have the Overgrow boosted Giga Drain, Leaf Storm, or something. Or the Frenzy Plant. Let's say this is a Life Orb Garchomp because, yeah, Scarf outspeeds you and then you're wrecked. But, I mean, that doesn't seem unlikely if they have a Jolteon and then maybe another Scarf Pokemon and then a Life Orb Garchomp. Because Life Orb Garchomp's still a filthy wall breaker. But Frenzy Plant comes in, that's a KO. Leaf Storm comes in with that Overgrow. That's going to be a KO. And that also kind of, like, shows some other options on the Sceptile that it might get itself into. Like, if you switch out, or not switch out, but let's say instead of Frenzy Plant, you have Leaf Storm because you don't like the shenanigans. I just really like the recharging moves because I think there's going to be a situation where it's like, yo, last Pokemon, or a situation where they can't set up and then that recharge doesn't matter and they're like choice specs locked and KOing you anyways or something. So like you guarantee the KO that you wouldn't have otherwise had. They can't punish you for the recharge, and then you just come out ahead because you chose to play the meme move. But I mean, like, let's say you go Leaf Storm. So you do that weird Jolteon trade, you Leaf Storm, you KO Garchomp, you're -2, you just switch out. Because the next time Sceptile comes in, it's still going to have Overgrow.
Want thicker, fuller hair? It starts with just one click. Through Hims, you can get personalized treatment for hair regrowth 100% online. That means no in-person visits and no insurance required. First, answer a few questions to get started. Then a provider will review your information and see if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your order ships right to your door for free. Plus, ongoing support is included, so you can regrow your hair with simple, convenient care. Start today at hims.com.
Leaf Storm on demand as one of the fastest Pokemon in the game. So no matter what you switch out into, I'm pretty sure you're taking less damage than you're dealing to the opponent on this, which KOs neutrally, as we just saw against the Garchomp. So maybe some hit and run shenanigans. That could be a play. Unfortunately, the multi-scale Dragonite is just like the Dragon Pulse doesn't do anything for you. Even without the multi-scale, like that's still a 2-hit KO. So I mean, you can get walled out by this if we pull up our boy Charizard, anything brought down to 50. So I mean, like Life Orb, Dragon Pulse, like the non-stab, just straight neutral hits a 3-hit KO. So I don't know if this is a commentary on the overall power level just being brought down in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl for the Gen 4 only meta, or if just these strong Pokemon that are still holding up in Gen 8 still bring enough power to where it's like, well, if we're talking about Pokemon Let's Go, where 3-hit KOs are super common and still like, wow, that Pokemon's 3-hit KOing, or oh my god, a 2-hit KO is like the new 1-hit KO. If that starts happening, yeah, then Sceptile's power not being absurd and Glass Cannon-y and Rocket Tag like we've seen in modern Pokemon, viable. If there's still Rocket Tag that develops because of Pokemon like Garchomp, Infernape, Dragon Dancers, like, Salamence comes into play. God, that's going to be very difficult to deal with. We can also kind of pull up, not here, the Salamence, but as we saw, it's like, yeah, even with the Charizard, if we double that damage or something, it's not looking the best. So depending on like how you can get away with something on the setup and then doing some damage, and you just like, it goes Dragon Dance, you don't KO it, and then it KOs you and gets a free Moxie and the game's over. So there's gonna be situations like that with the Sceptile, but it has this weird viability. So the straightforward stuff doesn't work. the setup might have something going for it, because, like, yeah, you get the Swords Dance, and then you get the Focus Sash, and then you just start wrecking the opponents. Alright, pretty cool. God, oh man, like, what? The game's too complex to just kind of show every damage calc. I'm, like, really kind of fishing for some damage calcs right now to figure out what happens, because that's at +2 for the KO, however, +0. So, it's just Sceptile and Salamence in the neutral. You outspeed, you go Rock Slide. 30% chance to flinch and just take it. They go Dragon Dance. They now outspeed you, do the damage, you survive on Focus Sash, and then you Rock Slide again. So no Swords Dance setup, but Unburden getting procced, and then Rock Slide 2 at KOing the Salamence to stop its setup, because you kind of have that Sash safety going on, and then you get a hit, so Sceptile becomes 1+ on the Focus Sash. Because a lot of Pokemon can do that. So, I mean, you find a super hit, you trade, you 2-hit KO neutral with the Adamant sometimes, or you just have, like, crazy coverage, and then the game gets cool, and then this would be Swords Dance instead. So, a lot of different flavors of Sceptile, but I mean, like, maybe you just use its stats to do a thing. Gastrodon doesn't exist as long as the Sceptile is out there. You still just have threatening damage, and you do have cleanup power. So, I mean, like, maybe you don't need to be crazy. Maybe this is just, like, the best Sceptile, because we're taking a couple steps back that people have forgotten about with Generation 4. Because, as I said in my tier list, I'm like, 120, 105 can't be bad under any circumstance, even though we're not seeing a lot of Sceptile play. And you have 5 other Pokemon on your team, so Sceptile is, like, the 6th Pokemon that fills a niche that nothing else does. And as long as you cover for the things it can't hit, which are a lot because of the limited coverage, like, it's just one of the fastest Pokemon in the game. At some point, Sceptile is just getting a free hit, and some of the other faster Pokemon also just consider Scarf. Like, even if the Pokemon's outspeeding you with a Scarf, they don't have Life Orb. They don't have Specs. That Jolteon damage calculation that we saw, like, that then just becomes effectively kind of the damage on a stab move. And if they don't have a high enough special attack, like, okay, it doesn't matter that they're Scarf, you still take the hit, you do that weird Giga Drain trade, and now you're actually, like, ahead, or going 1-for-1, or something weird is happening. So, there's Sceptile. And then, like, equal with Alakazam Dugtrio. Oh, those speed tires get ugly. But, Swallow, that's a flying type, but we saw with, like, Unburden. I don't know, game's weird, guys. But it's also pretty surprising how few Pokemon are faster than the Sceptile, and what flying options does Aerodactyl even have? Defog, Roost, Tailwind, Aerial Ace, Fly, Wing Attack? Okay, so this gets interesting, and once again, Pokemon just starts becoming too complex of a game to really quantify, but it kind of shows you the ideas of what's going on here. So, 105... low base power, stab, super effective hit. Actually, effectively just a non-stab, super effective hit for a lot of other Pokemon as well. Aerial Ace doesn't KO, but pretty much every Aerodactyl's having Life Orb, and I don't even need to show it. Like, that's just going to turn into a KO. But if it doesn't, and this is where, like, just games come into play. Like, you see Life Orb on a different Pokemon on the opposing team. You've seen Aerodactyl come in. Maybe it's Sash. Sash Aerodactyl for, like, just the speed trading and going 1+. That's something that exists in Pokemon. So, Aerodactyl hits you. You survive 80% of the time. You're down to, like, no health. But then the Giga Drain kind of does the same thing in return. It's not a KO, but you get half your health back, and then you know the Aerodactyl is going to, like, throw an Aerial Ace or just be weak or something. And do you have enough health to go down to a neutral Rock Slide? You do, because of Life Orb burn after all the other hits. You throw the Leaf Storm in this situation, where you probably get KO'd. So you take, like, 90%, throw the Leaf Storm, that returns a KO, Life Orb KOs you, but then you just trade it against an Aerodactyl as a slower Grass-type Pokemon into a faster Flying-type Pokemon, thus kind of removing the weird threat of the speed tier interactions for Gen 4. I don't know. The game is weird, but a lot of things happen. Let's say you go for the Giga Drain. Well, I mean, now you got a 50% health Sceptile, and you're switching out against a non-Life Orb Aerodactyl that's not going to have a lot of neutral damage. So then your Sceptile, like, you just come out ahead on damage with these Giga Drain trades into switches, into bringing it back in for a Leaf Storm and then a KO. So yeah, that's what we learned. Use those stats, and maybe someone just doesn't respect it. Like, look at this kid playing with his favorites. He's got a Sceptile, man. He's not even competitive. And then it's like, oh no, I have 3 Pokemons left that are slower than the Sceptile and sitting around 60% health. He's going to Giga Drain trade one of them, and then Leaf Storm and then switch out. Even if I KO the switch Pokemon, Sceptile comes in and then I lose. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching. This Pokemon is boring, the moveset is uninteresting, and it's also overrated. 3 of the things I hate most in competitive Pokemon, but I guess we have to make a guide, so this is how to use Blaziken in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Let's check out the ability, because that's what makes Pokemon so boring. It's going to hit the field, it's going to protect, it's going to grab the +1 speed, and now it's effectively a scarfed 80 speed Jolly Pokemon with 120 on the attack, but it can change its moves, and it gets access to a different item. Life Orb on the 120 attack is pretty good, but what makes it better is the 120 stab. Base power moves for both of its typings. Speaking of typings, let's see what it's weak to. A lot. Flying, Ground, Water, and Psychic. Ground being pretty common. Flying, it's going to be a thing. Water, well, you get bulked out on the Flare Blitz, and a neutral close combat from like just a fat defensive water Pokemon is not really going to threaten that water Pokemon too much. And Psychic, maybe a Psychic thing happens. Also, with the speed boost, it's going to be every turn, so it's going to be fast on that second turn. It might get the KO, and then it's just going to get faster and harder to catch from there. As for the other move option, I was going to say this is where things get interesting, because that's just how I talk about Pokemon, but there really isn't much interesting things here. Like, you look at the Earthquake and you go, ooh, Earthquake. That's just good on everything, and I really want to clap with the Blaziken. Well, to see what's going on with the Earthquake, it's time to visit our old friend, the Moveset Calculator, on Pokemon DB. You'll never hear the song again. So yeah, it's been a while since I've done this. That's mostly because it's kind of gotten really weird as more generations and more Pokemon have been introduced. Like, Generation 8 was kind of slow to update, and then when there's like over 1,000 Pokemon because of all the forms and stuff, and new typings and ability interactions, it just doesn't hit like it used to. It used to be like, oh man guys, we bring out that Fighting Ghost and we have perfect coverage. Oh, well, Fighting Ghost still has perfect coverage. Now, Hisuian Zoroark is going to screw that up, and isn't it that out of all of the theoretical type combinations, that's the only thing that would disrupt a Fighting Ghost from being perfect coverage? I don't remember, but there was also just some fun where you play around with, like, Electric Ice, you know, the whole Bolt Beam thing, because Magnezone, Shedinja, Rotom, then newer on the Togedemaru and the Artizolt, and you splash in some other things like, yeah, Bolt Beam, just solid like that. Well, we can look at the Blaziken, and we can see Firefighting, pretty solid, 66 on the not very effective, 515 for 64. But when you add in Ground, and I guess we can still kind of adapt this to Gen 4 by just cutting it off at Gen 4 Pokemon, but when you add in the Ground, it doesn't get rid of your problems, like Gyarados and Dragonite. And I haven't really seen too much Mantine, but you don't get to cover anything into the Mantine. Pelipper, Rain Dance Team, Salamence. So adding in the Earthquake, even though it sounds cool and it adds a decent amount of super effective hits, like wow, 160 almost, that's crazy, it doesn't stop the strong Dragon Dance Pokemon from obliterating you. Yeah, and it means that you don't really have an option against them because they're going to be resisting you even if you are faster than them. So it means the game gets weird. Also, it's kind of why I haven't been using the type coverage checker as much, because it's more about playing against the meta than having a moveset for every Pokemon. But maybe now that we're in Gen 4, it kind of regresses back to, hey, you kind of want a coverage for everything. And then going back to the Blaziken moveset, that's why the Pokemon is very uninteresting, because there's no crazy competitive decisions, and in Generation 4 Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, it loses the Thunder Punch. So the Thunder Punch was kind of the something that it maybe had a little bit of, but overall you don't have a super effective answer. Like, there's no random Dragon Splash-In move for the Blaziken, no Electric either. Rock Slide, it's kind of it. Stone Miss, you put that in there, and that does deal with all the Pokemon we just talked about, so that's a good thing to have. 20% chance you lose, but I guess it's better than having Earthquake and a 100% chance to lose. The Rock Slide damage, especially after an Intimidate threat or something, doesn't really seem to be there. So that's the Blaziken. I mean, even the colors are boring. We got brown, red. Yeah, it's not, like, there's nothing interesting here. You just Speed Boost Protect, click the best move. Now, Kentucky Fried Blaziken does come in a few different flavors, so we can talk about those. This is kind of a moveset, but not really. It's mostly just the options that you can throw into another moveset. Like, if you want to go with this offensive moveset, you go Focus Sash, Swords Dance. It kind of gives you that Protect, where it's like, yeah, Protect is just so I don't die and then I'm faster than everything. Here's where it looks like for that. You go Swords Dance, take a hit, potential Focus Sash, and then you have the +2, Close Combat and Stone Edge, which is going to offset, and then if you desperately need to use the Flare Blitz, that's going to work, but it will get you KO'd. You can opt in for the Blaze Kick at that point, because like Swords Dance, that's just going to give us way more damage than the Life Orb, kind of putting us in the same realm of Blaze Kick damage, better than just like straight recoiling yourself down. And that is kind of like the weird thing that happens with the Blaziken, that it might not get the 6-0 sweep just from chip damage, necessary Flare Blitz recoil on the Life Orb set, and then just like Life Orb damage. So weird things can happen with the Blaziken, but it's also frail, so it might not get a longevity, or just hard sweeps everything. That's why I mean, like, the right moveset at the right time. Sometimes you have Blaze Kick, you just get walled out, and then you lose. Other times you have the Flare Blitz, and then you get to KO 2 Pokemon before you go down to your own recoil, and then you lose. Some people like running Bulk Up on the Blaziken, but that kind of conflicts with a lot of the movesets unless you're going Baton Pass, because Bulk Up makes you tankier, but Focus Sash is there for when you're not tanky, so that kind of doesn't make sense. Also, Bulk Up, take a hit, and then use a +1 Life Orb attack. Well, it doesn't matter if you're tanky if the Life Orb is eventually going to take you down. So this is just kind of like a really reliable way of putting attack, defense, and speed into another Pokemon. And then you also just have Close Combat as an out, and potentially something else, maybe another coverage move, maybe the Substitute. Again, that makes less sense on the Focus Sash. And that's what I mean, like, the Pokemon just starts getting, like, weird and messy for whatever kind of concoction you're trying to pull up with the Blaziken. It's like, okay, you have a 120 attack Pokemon, it's got 80 base speed, it's got Jolly, it has crazy high base power moves. What are you going to do with it? Pass stats into another Pokemon. However, that is dangerous. Like, a Garchomp with +2 speed, +1 attack, +1 defense, I don't see how that thing dies, except to, like, a Focus Sash Ice-type Pokemon. But even if you sub and break your own Sash, there could also be some, like, really weird interactions to where you outspeed a Pokemon, use Bulk Up, it hits you, but because of the Bulk Up, you survive with, like, a third, and that's a free sub, and maybe they go for some setup or they switch or something, and then if you can just Baton Pass any stats from Blaziken plus a Substitute, you're just winning the game. But also the Protect, it's going to be there for that safety. Also, Protect, something, Focus Sash, something, Protect, and now you're just passing off +3 speed into any Pokemon. At that point, it becomes very difficult to catch up, and that Pokemon is also going to have Bulk Up or potential Swords Dance. Or, by the way, now we're just a +2 Blaziken, so the Close Combat KOs anything that isn't a Ghost-type Pokemon. Alright, and that's where we go into the speed tiers, because you might be thinking, well, if we just have permanent speed boosting, why are we running the Jolly Nature? Why not Adamant? Why not just get our +2, outspeed everything on the 80 neutral speed, and then win the game from there? Well, that's because of a little Pokemon called Gyarados, and also the weirdness of the 80 base speeds. So here we have neutral 80 at 1.5, and that immediately puts us under 130 base speed Pokemon. So Jolteon can mess us up. We are a frail Pokemon. So a Specs Jolteon is going to outspeed the +1 Adamant Blaziken. you're just going to find yourself in that position, and you're going to be put into a losing position because of it. And that also means that 80 base speed Pokemon with a beneficial nature that are going for either Scarf or Dragon Dance or some kind of plus, or if they end up with like an agility and now they have a +2 over you, they're just always going to be ahead, and Blaziken does not have the luxury of ever being behind. So that's a thing that's going on, and then, yeah, the speed tiers and stuff start getting messy. Let's go and look at what Blaziken doesn't KO, because it KOs most things. So if we come in with that Clefable, unaware, so it doesn't matter if you have Swords Dance. If you go for Swords Dance, Clefable switches in, this is what the numbers look like. So the Flare Blitz hurts. Clefable should not be getting 2-hit KO'd. However, all it has to do is just predict the damage, and there's no threat from Blaziken setting up, so the idea is, eat the Flare Blitz, immediately use Moonlight, and Blaziken takes 1/3 of its health from recoil, and it doesn't get to do that too many more times. So you can like really handle the Blaziken with purely defensive wall Pokemon. Here we have the Close Combat, which is the same damage as a Flare Blitz onto a Hippowdon, and that's going to be a 3-hit KO. So Hippowdon has some weird things it can do, just straying out an Earthquake into a KO uninvested because Blaziken is frail. Also, any like non-stab options from Blaziken, very underwhelming. If we're just talking about Blaziken raw KOing a Pokemon, we can go and pull out, I don't know, something. Even though Silvally isn't in the game, we were using it in other generations, just kind of be like, hey, a fat 90-90 uninvested Pokemon, if you can neutrally KO this thing, you're going to be in a good spot. Blaziken doesn't neutrally KO on the Flare Blitz, so we kind of just keep bringing this down until we see what it KOs. 80-80, Flare Blitz finds the KO. So roughly, if you watch my Swampert guide, this is going to be the same damage as a Choice Band Swampert, but it's going to be faster, so it leaves less opportunity to be counterplayed, and that is a pretty fat range to KO Pokemon in. So most sweepers, you have the speed over them because of the speed boost. You hit them neutrally with something, you're going to take a lot of recoil, or you're opening yourself up with a Close Combat. A -1 Blaziken does not want to eat an Aqua Jet. Hell, even Extreme Speed at that point starts getting dangerous. So it just kind of shows that Blaziken's role in Pokemon is Uranium. It's dangerous, but also unstable and subject to decay. And I know there's going to be someone in there, it's like,
well, uranium isn't even the most dangerous radioactive element. That's just a misconception. You really need to worry about whatever, something.
Fine. Blaziken's just radioactive, and that makes it spooky. How about that? Yeah, so a couple different things it can do. Maybe you have the right moveset and you win. Maybe you have the wrong moveset and you lose. Maybe you just get walled out. Maybe you pop off, maybe you fall flat. That's what I mean, like, Blaziken isn't like this god unstoppable Pokemon. Once you actually get to a decent skill level of play, this thing doesn't run you over, but it's a complete pub stomper, because no one just knows, like, oh, speed boost, it's strong now, and then it just gains a massive advantage, or just takes the game all by itself, and things get pretty wacky from there. So, hope you guys enjoy the video, hope you all have a nice day, thank you very much for watching. Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and this is how to use Swampert in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. So the first Swampert moveset I'm going to be showing off is my classic Swampert. It's not the best moveset, but it really shows the cool things that Swampert can get up to. It has access to both Counter and Mirror Coat, and as a Water Ground Pokemon, it only has one weakness. 4x weak to Grass, so stay away from leaves. Outside of that, you pretty much survive anything, especially with a 100 hit points, 90 defense, 90 special defense, fully defensive invested tank. And the cool thing about Counter is that it doubles the damage that you receive. But most sweeping Pokemon are not going to have 100 base hit points, let alone invested 100 base hit points. So you can take 40% and then KO an enemy with Counter Mirror Coat. Other things happen, Citrus Berry just gives you more effectiveness and more potential to just return hits. The ideal scenario is that you just go 2 for 1. You eat a hit, counter, eat a hit, or eat a hit, Citrus Berry, counter, eat a hit, Mirror Coat, eat a hit, finally get KO'd. But hey, you were able to do some pretty cool stuff and just completely shut down the opponent's momentum. And then the rest of the moveset is just coverage, Earthquake, really good, Avalanche, in theory, kind of makes sense, but also doesn't, because if you know you're eating a hit, then you just counter instead, and it's probably going to be more damage than a super Avalanche. For the 4x Avalanche, that's also where it gets weird, because, okay, we're going up against a Dragonite or a Salamence that's trying to set up, so hitting them with an avalanche becomes 4x, but we don't get the doubled power off of taking the damage first because they're setting up, but at least it's something to do against them, especially as like flying type Pokemon, for bonus damage, and if counter is like too risky, because I go counter, they go Dragon Dance. Oh no, game is spooky now. If I keep on countering and they keep on Dragon Dancing, eventually I get one shot, and then the counter doesn't matter. The ability, we have no water type moves, so I mean like Damp, if you can get a hold of it. No one's really running Explosion shenanigans, so like the ability just doesn't exist on the Swampert, which is a shame. Other than that, there's also some weird things we can look into, because what if we go for a relaxed nature, and then we go Ice Beam, not relying on the Avalanche? We're gonna have to take a look at those damage calculations, but this is why Pokemon is beautiful, because it's such a weird game when you get into the numbers. That, on the surface, Ice Beam is just gonna be 50% more damage than the Avalanche if we're not getting the boosted Avalanche, and we're going from 206 to 256. So Ice Beam is just straight up more damage if you're just throwing it onto a Pokemon trying to stop their setup, and those are going to be the most common Pokemon to stop setup on. But what about Gyarados? Good question. Now, the EV spread on Swampert might look a little weird to you, but there's an idea here, because you're going to be facing physical hits more often than special hits, or like overall the damage skew is more physical, but technically you don't want to block too much physical damage, that way your counter has the best chance of one-hit KOing the opponent, but you still want to be tanky, so it's kind of like hanging in the balance, and I just like this, because instead of just going like full special defense, and then maybe making yourself too vulnerable defensively, you know, this is an easy break point. Use 20 vitamins, done. Here's how you want to do it. You want to max out the hit points, use 20 vitamins on the special defense, and then you just pour 6 in defense, and you're done. Easy EV training legitimately inside of your game. And yeah, that's going to be it. It's a fun set. Makes Swampert a bit unpredictable. Like I said, it's not the best moveset, but still like pretty cool if it works and when it works. However, I feel like the most common Swampert set is going to be something like this because it's filthy, it's annoying. So we talked about how difficult it is to KO Swampert, and one thing I've noticed in Brilliant Diamond Shine Pearls, it seems like not a lot of people are running offensive grass. So you can just kind of get away with it. And Yawn is filthy. If you play the Yawn properly and you force switches or double Yawn, or they commit and then they just stay in and fall asleep and you find a way of capitalizing on that, it's just really strong. After that, we have Roar and Stealth Rock. So here's my philosophy on Stealth Rock. It sucks. It's bad. Don't use it. All you're doing is giving your opponent a free turn of setup. If you're just going in like, well, the damage calculations say that this turns into one-hit KO after the Stealth Rock's activation, but that also means that you're not in a neutral game state. Neutral game states are the best way of factoring like damage calculations and where to go for strategy and stuff. If you're already assuming a Stealth Rock, so that means you gave up advantage to set up the Stealth Rock, and usually that can be a losing advantage. You lead Ferrothorn, Stealth Rock happens, and then the multi-scale Dragonite goes and sets up a Dragon Dance, fire punches you, and the game's over. Or, you know, anything can happen after that. Unless, so Stealth Rock sucks, unless Roar is involved. And this is like, I wouldn't say a new thing, but phasing only gets more and more common. Back in the original Generation 4, I barely saw any like Whirlwind Skarmories or something because people didn't like the idea of having a taunt bait 4 status Pokemon. Now, that's pretty common. And the idea behind Skarmory is that you aren't forcing switches. You're making your opponent switch because they can't break the Skarmory, and then they can't break the Blissey, and then after you heal and stuff, and leftovers and all the other madness inside the game, like, they're just always damage negative, especially after a Stealth Rocks and Spikes or something. But if you give up that setup, and you don't have a way of cleansing that setup, so also Haze works with Roar, or Haze works with Stealth Rock, stuff like that. If you can't cleanse the setup, then you're just losing. So if you're splashing in Stealth Rocks thinking you're cool, you actually suck at the game. But if you pair with Roar, now you're actually accomplishing something with it, and I hate that it's becoming more common, not just because I'm a setup tank player, but also just because it's a bad strategy unless you have to do this. But then people don't like doing that because you have a Pokemon that's now missing 2 move slots. If you go up against Hyper Offense, you just lose. And now we're not even talking about Swampert, we're just talking about the strange progression of the metagame throughout the history of Pokemon, which kind of folds back into 1 or 2 moves you might incorporate onto the Swampert. But the weird thing for me is that, yeah, phasing, like I said, it's gotten more and more common, but it was still fairly uncommon until, like, Season 3 of the Pokemon Sword and Shield Battle Stadium, where people just were, like, winning so hard with setup in the early days of Pokemon Sword and Shield that in 3v3 singles, people were bringing 2 anti-setup Pokemon. Like, there'd be Trick Scarf, there'd be Roar, there would be Haze, there would also just be taunts everywhere. So, I mean, like, that's a thing. And now the meta is a complete mess because people are terrified of everything. And, you know, Roar is just a really good catch-all that no matter what they're doing, if you can, like, predict the Roar on their setup turn, that's really good. If it's a tank setup to become unkillable, they're not going to be able to damage your Swampert and be threatening enough so you can just roar that away. It's really about just reacting to it. The second the opponent threatens a setup Pokemon, you go into your roar, and then you just try to get momentum that way, and you just cannot let them take off. Like, people, they used to be arrogant. They used to be like, yeah, I can beat out this stockpile Belly Jump Snorlax. Oh, I can't. Oh, I lose. Now everyone knows. The secret's out. So that means Roar is in, and Stealth Rocks pairs really nicely with that. And the last move can be anything. Scald is an idea. The thing is, if like you burn your opponent, the yawn doesn't work. However, sometimes having a burned physical attacker that's threatening setup is more important than it maybe switching out because it's a little sleepy or something like that. Like I said, people don't like the 4 status Pokemon because they're taunt bait. And Taunt is common, but it seems like Taunt is becoming less common for Haze and Roar, and that's why the meta is a mess. But if you do something like this, it just gives you the complete autonomy over your opponent. Yawn, protect. If they don't switch, then they're just asleep. And if they do switch, you just go like if you get super Galaxy Brain into their mind, just set up that vacation home rent-free, dude. You just go double yawn, and now like something's eventually falling asleep, and you don't want to keep switching out every time you get drowsy because Stealth Rocks will chip you away if something happens. Like Stealth Rocks take a hit, or maybe Bright Powder bails you out of something. Yawn, take a hit, doesn't matter because like you're super giga tanky, and then you just go protect, they're asleep, roar, yawn, double yawn because they're switching, protect, and like if there's just a scenario where if you're just better than them, they lose like half of an effective Pokemon's health off of the Stealth Rocks, maybe even more, and then 2 of them are asleep. You get that much momentum in a Pokemon game, and it's pretty much impossible for the opposing Pokemon to come back from. Once Swampert does go down, you have to be aware that like your Roar Pokemon is gone, unless you're running triple anti setup, because that's just the meta now. And you kind of have to be aware that the opponent can still gain against you without this cheese, but if you use it properly, yeah, it's just over for them. After that, Banded Swampert. Banded Swampert, to be respected. You know why? It's more damage than Garchomp. Wait, nothing's more damage than Garchomp. Garchomp's in a weird place because it only has 130 attack. But only isn't the right word because this thing will neutrally one-shot you on an Outrage, and my goodness, even a Scarf Earthquake hits like a truck. But Swampert doesn't need to care about speed. Swampert's tanky enough to eat that hit, so 178 attack versus a 182. An Adamant Swampert is the same damage as a Jolly Garchomp. That doesn't sound right, but that's how math works inside of Pokemon. And if you're banded, that's just 50% more damage. And if you're torrented, then you're just destroying everything. Now, the band does kind of leave up some vulnerabilities where it's like, yeah, I get locked into the wrong move, but if you use the right move, you just win, and then you can splash in the counter. Like, there's all kinds of moves you can put here, but when I was running damage calculations, I was just, like, thinking on the coverage. I didn't really see too much of a point, whereas counter, I feel, bails you out and catches the opponent off guard more than anything. Like, if you go and just truck them on a waterfall, they might go, whoa, is that Swampert banded? Okay, I gotta keep an eye on that. And then Swampert comes in later and then uses counter. It's like, what? How is that even a possibility? Well, now you're dead. So we got that going on, and since we don't have to worry about speed, 2v2 hit points, 2v2 attack, 4 speed for the creep. And then, there we go. 60 creep is a thing. I don't know, maybe give up a bit more to get a bit more, and then game's funny and weird like that. Yeah, all of this stuff just coming together means that, like, Swampert is one of the strongest banded attackers because it's giga bulky, and it will start one-shotting things. How hard is a one-shot? Let's find out. So, we have a Weavile, which is a 70 hit point, 65 defense Pokemon. Weavile doesn't do anything to us on max hit points, and then we one-shot it on Earthquake with Choice Band, Adamant, and no other shenanigans going on. And if we're in, like, Torrent range, Waterfall also gets really nasty. So yeah, we eat a hit. Knockoff or Icicle Crash isn't putting us into Torrent, but it kind of like shows some weirdness. You know, this is a Life Orb Weavile using its strongest stab move to get 50-ish%. So anything weaker than that, we're a 3-hit KO Pokemon, which means we're going to be picking up 1+, if not 2. It kind of gets nasty. And then it also depends on the meta. Maybe if Pokemon are like kind of slower and bulkier, Swampert at least gets some tag damage before it goes down. Like that Waterfall is going to wreck a Bronzong or something. So game's still kind of weird. And we can also play around with numbers. 85-80 is still going to be a chance to KO on the Earthquake. Like, look at that. If a Pokemon is not a dedicated tank, it risks getting one-shot by the Choice Banded Swampert. Or it will just straight up get one-shot if it hits Swampert really hard, Swampert bulks it out, and then returns the KO. So that's what means, like, oh, when you look at the damage numbers and compare it to Garchomp, this Pokemon's kind of weird. Like, you don't think about these numbers, but they exist. And, like, is that what's being slept on? I don't know. I personally like this moveset because being able to ruin your opponent's day in this manner is something that's very hard to come back from, but this is just like a Pokemon. Like, this is a real Pokemon that can do strong things inside of a battle, and that's pretty cool to me. Also, with this, I wanted to show the argument for a counter even on the Choice Banded set, because Choice Band Avalanche is not going to be enough to KO a Gyarados. You can do significant damage, and maybe weird things happen where Gyarados takes a little bit of chip as it's setting up, and then that puts it into KO range. But I mean, like, 252 hit point Swampert just survives the Waterfall from Gyarados at +2. Now, Moxie kind of gets weird, so, I mean, +3. You still survive +3 almost every time, and that'd be like, okay, so it gets +2, and then KOs your Pokemon is now at +3. That's an unstoppable, unbeatable Gyarados. Actually not. Or if it just goes like +1 into Moxie, or maybe it's running Intimidate because Intimidate's still really strong, or finds, like, if it has +2 attack for any reason, you're still okay as a Swampert. And that's why you just eat that, you counter it, and then the Pokemon that was going to run over your entire team doesn't. And you also maybe have an option or something outside of that. So yeah, the Banded Swampert, good. However, this wouldn't be a Verlisify moveset video if we didn't talk about a setup moveset for the Pokemon. So, Curse Amnesia. Swampert's got it, and as we talked about, Swampert is tanky, so Swampert quickly, like, if you remove all the grass threat from the opponent's team, and they don't have a way of shutting down setup, but like I said, it's pretty common now because of this. People are tired of losing to this, so then they'll do weird things in the game and just try to make it to where they'll never have to worry about it again, but leaving themselves vulnerable to just complete unhinged jaw aggro teams. I don't know, are we going to be in a cyclical meta forever, or will something be solved? Who even knows at this point? Pokemon's weird. We got Curse, Amnesia, and like, yeah, set up 2 Curses, go Chesto, Resto, maybe you need an Amnesia in there. That's going to make you super fat against special attacks. Avalanche, it's 16 PP, it's not crazy, but this is what we get. And again, like, no water moves. Why no Earthquake? Because a flying type Pokemon. If I spend all this time setting up and becoming unkillable, and like unstoppable and just a one-shotting machine, why would I just want to lose if they have a flying or a levitate Pokemon, which is super common? Sounds kind of silly. Same thing for the water. I don't want that stray Rain Dish Gastrodon to shut me down, or water absorb Pokemon, or dry skin or something weird. So Avalanche hits everything neutral, and the 120 base power, that's the same as a Waterfall. So if you have a Waterfall, but you're pretty much just like getting hit every time for Avalanche and returning damage, that's just the weird thing about unskilled Pokemon players. They don't have the basic comprehension skills and inner monologue to think through how power plays out throughout a Pokemon game. That was the whole thing behind the idiots hating on the Heavy Slam Wailord. Heavy Slam Wailord is going to be a 120 power move in almost every situation, while also being unstoppable because nothing is immune to steel. So, kind of the same idea here, and eventually you just get +6, and then you destroy everything because 110 attack is just chilling there. That's pretty cool. And you can, like, the thing is, you rest, eat hits, wake up, attack, and rest, and that's just how tanky you are, and that's why these kind of movesets are crazy. Last thing I want to do was, like, compare it to the Gastrodon. Like, what does Swampert bring that Gastrodon doesn't? Or why would we not run another water ground Pokemon? What is, like, the tankiness of, you know, Swampert over the Gastrodon? So if we go and bring this back, we have 207, 128, 135 for the Swampert, 218, 120, 113 for the Gastrodon. So Swampert actually tankier than the Gastrodon. And Gastrodon is pretty much used as just a really filthy, just momentum hindering Pokemon against the opponent, but it does have the advantage with the recover, so it instantly gets back half of its health, and it's still a comparable 3-hit KO Pokemon. Can also like stockpile and do its own things and curse as well. So I mean, like, there's similarities here. If you're running Gastrodon offensively, I feel like an offensive Swampert is better. If you're running setup, I feel Gastrodon is better because of that recover. And if you're doing stall, Gastrodon doesn't get to yawn, roar, stealth rock like this because he doesn't have any phasing. So different Pokemon for different goals, but yeah, like the Swampert, if you're like, oh man, Gastrodon, why is it so filthy? Swampert's actually in the same tier of filth, and that's kind of surprising, while also being potentially harder hitting than Garchomp. Alright, Swampert's pretty good. You also can't really understate what this does to a team with multiple setup Pokemon, which again is kind of common, so yeah, like Swampert, pretty good. Hope you guys enjoy the video, hope you all have a nice day, thank you very much for watching. Well, welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and this is how to use Luxray in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. So I'm still trying to figure out which Pokemon to do when for the movesets, but I feel like I'm leaning more towards Pokemon that interest me and just figuring out how they work, as well as just like strong and popular Pokemon. Cool thing about Luxray, really popular, but very sad for Luxray fans because it's mostly just looked down as a hard-to-use Pokemon, and it really is. So we take a look at the stats. 120 attack. Pretty good, not the best, but actually just strong. However, 70 speed. How do you do anything with 70 speed? That feels unplayable almost. Or is it? Because unless you've looked into the speed tiers, and I haven't, I play setup tanks. My goal is to get outsped because I'm not playing those shenanigans, tank up, and then win. So I don't really care too much. However, I was baffled when I saw where Luxray lands because it's faster than 130 speed Pokemon. That 70 base speed, Scarf, 1.5, positive, so jolly, 201. Jolteon, positive, no modifier, 130 speed, 200. A lot of people know this, and like a lot of speed things are just intuitive, but 70 seems low. Like 70 is like the barrier of, nah, you can't throw a Scarf on that because that just doesn't work. So I've just kind of like given up on the speed tiers meaning anything for the Luxray, but actually, you want to do it. And the math checks out. Half of 134 is 67, that's 201. You get a Jolteon, Jolteon's 200, level 50, level 50. Nah? And then it gets messed up because these numbers are so razor thin. And also this is where it gets screwy. Because if you're playing in Simulator, it's going to be level 100, I think, for Pokemon Showdown. Like it's all default to level 100. But if you're playing Battle Spot or Flat Rules, which is pretty much everything in the main series games, like in the games themselves, it's actually going to lose in the level 100 match. So we got 262. 394, but half of that is 131, and that brings us to 393? So, Luxray, I'm not gonna say Luxray sucks, like, oh, doesn't hit the 130 tier, sucks in level 100, but I'm like, wait a second, Luxray kinda strong, and the cool thing is, Pokemon Showdown's updated to Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, so we can actually sort by speed, where we have unreleased Deoxys, Ninjask, Electrode, Aerodactyl. Wait, that's it? 5 Pokemon that are 130 speed or higher? And Luxray beats 3 of them? So, Luxray comes in, claps the flying type Aerodactyl, claps the flying type Crobat, and has no fear of Jolteon whatsoever because it's a resisted hit on the Electric or Shadow Ball. And then Electrode Ninjask, those are on their own shenanigans. Ninjask is just a cheesy baton pass cheeser Pokemon, and Electrode doesn't matter most of the time. Maybe, I don't know. So, Luxray is good. Alright, let's go into the movesets. We got Wild Charge, we got Crunch, Ice Fang, Fire Fang, maybe Iron Tail, maybe Facade. I don't know where the moveset goes, because it does feel weird when you're like, alright, we have Wild Charge on all its damage, we have Crunch, and then you're running double Fang for like the super low base power, but man, Iron Tail spooks the hell out of me. 75% accuracy. I don't play those games. I don't like that. But that's some fat damage. Like you hit a Fairy type Pokemon, it's incomparable to things. Because the weird thing is, when you start breaking down moves, stab moves with high base power versus low base power super effective moves, like that's where people stop like just remembering how the game works and just throw out the inefficient move. So Wild Charge with stab goes to 135 power, Ice Fang super is 130. So minus the recoil, but whenever you break it down, it's like, okay, so Wild Charge just does more damage than super effective Ice Fang. So you need that 4x, which makes sense. Like, you're going to be finding that on Garchomp, Dragonite, Gliscor. So yeah, the Ice is exclusively 4x coverage. Crunch as a super effective hit works, so we don't have to worry about that. But what about Facade? Like, is there a realm in the Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl meta? Like, does Toxic Spikes get played? Are you going to be eating stray Will-O-Wisps? Are burns common? Because if they are, then you want the Facade, especially for the burn, because Facade ignoring burn is absurd, and then you have 140 base power. But let's say you get poisoned. That's 170 power versus 135 power, maybe, if you have... Actually, no, then the Guts is actually not... Wait, let's ignore Guts. Let's say you're just running Intimidate. Well, I just want to make this raw about, like, Facade Wild Charge. Is that worth it? Because it's not a guarantee that you're ending up status, but you might. And the paralysis doesn't matter because you're a Luxray. So that's kind of weird. However, this is where Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl shows its weirdness. Toxic, not splashable. Like, it's still the same thing from Pokemon Sword and Shield, where Toxic was just removed from every Pokemon moveset when it was pretty much on every Pokemon moveset. So Toxic stalling, very uncommon. Like, some of these are Toxic stall Pokemon, but nowhere near what we've seen. Like, Gliscor loses Toxic. That's spooky for the Gliscor. I don't know where do we go from here? I don't know. So yeah, like, you're not gonna just randomly get Toxic stalled out and then need the Facade damage. But what about Guts? Like, Scarf Guts, if you just throw yourself into a Will-O-Wisp, or if you're, like, there's no way Toxic Spikes is viable. Like, you just can't run Toxic Spikes because, one, it's a suck move to begin with. Injury hazards are way overrated and suck just like Score Shield and Pokemon Unite. But outside of that, it's like, if you find you're getting status, you run the Guts, and I don't know, then you need the Facade. If not, you have some other weird options. Just go Intimidate, switching, and then you just trade with Pokemon. Because you're one of the fastest Pokemon in the game. And unless Infernape kind of gets into the Greninja situation where it has to run Scarf to survive, like, okay, you come in, you Intimidate the Infernape, it can still throw an Overheat on you, but game's weird, so you don't even know what's going to happen. But, like, you Intimidate them, and then you outspeed, don't one-shot them, take a hit, KO, and then you're faster than anything else they can bring. Is Luxray a 1-for-1 plus Pokemon? Nah, it's Luxray. Okay, let's go and check out this little thing called reality. A lot of people online struggle with it, but let's see what happens when Luxray comes in, Wild Charges Infernape in the neutral, and then shenanigans happen. So, Life Orb, Iron Fist, well, Iron Fist doesn't matter for the Flare Blitz, but you eat a Flare Blitz, and that's just gonna be a lot of damage. High chance to KO. Like, you get the outspeed and you chunk in that damage, but then you take recoil, and then you just die to the Flare Blitz. But what if it's Focus Sash? So, Focus Sash was effectively no item. You take a chunk of recoil, but it's not enough to kill you in the worst case scenario. As we talked about that Overheat, like, if you Intimidate them, so we go -1 attack. Or actually, no, I think the Intimidate is already... No, okay, there it is. That's it, factoring in. Oh, they added a button. It used to just be, like, default now. So, we have that. It's like, yeah, okay, so the Intimidate drops to around 50%. Overheat is just not ridiculous compared to, like, the attack investment and 0 special attack and whatever. And even if it's, like, a weird set, you're not really taking too much damage. So, like, yeah, barring the Mach Punch, you win. So, like, Wild Charge, fresh Pokemon, damage. You are Scarf Locked, but I mean, at that point, you're an Intimidate Pokemon. If you switch out with, like, a small amount of health, you just come in, Intimidate, throw down some damage, and now the opposing Pokemon is -1 attack and very hurt. How hurt can they be? Let's find out. We got Scizor. Scizor eats a Fire Fang. Now, this is actually factoring in Rivalry, because for some reason, Other counts as Rivalry, but if we go to the Intimidate, then we can see that the numbers kind of change around. Yeah, so I mean, like, not enough to one-shot the Scizor. And depending on if Intimidate's on the table or not, like, you slow down a Swords Dance, the bullet punch just doesn't matter. I don't know who's running Sand Tomb. That's just some Smogon nonsense. So I mean, like, wow, okay, what if we're not intimidated and we just like, you come into a +2, bullet punch, ain't it, and Fire Fang's still doing a lot of damage. All right, +4 Scissors, unstoppable. Nah, you tank those, and then you drop to +3. You tank those. Again, knockoff and like other things are weird. But whatever Scizor's up to. But I mean, like, the game might not necessarily be over if you can get that Fire Fang in there. And let's say we go into a rivalry setup, because that's where Scizor, or not Scizor, that's where Luxray gets weird. All right, we have an almost 90% chance to KO a Scizor, and we just outspeed it. And that's like the weird, or not outspeed it, but I mean, like, we eat any bullet punch, and if it's not like if it's not throwing the bullet punch, Scizor's speed is somehow more trash than Luxray's, and the 70 speed works once again. It's like you're forcing it into a bullet punch that wherever it's at isn't really going to be like the spookiest thing out there, and that's also just like weird. I don't know. I don't know what this Pokemon is. So now we can talk about the rivalry, because there's multiple stages to learning about shenanigans. Like, we're still on the first moveset, guys. I don't know what's going on with Luxray. Is it B tier? But since it's fast and trades well, does that make it A tier? Because it seems reliable enough. But I think it can also just get like hard setup on. Like, Pokemon comes in, goes Curse or Iron Defense, or is just a physical wall, and now you don't have a Pokemon as long as that wall exists. So that could be hard. It's more of an anti-sweeper Pokemon. I don't know how that fits onto your team, if there's a better one out there for your team, or the roles fitting in. So I mean, like, okay, yeah, Luxray, viable. Like, at the very least, this is strangely viable. But now let's talk about abilities. So one of the meta things you start learning in Pokemon is, oh, 0 attack IVs because foul play is a thing. After that, you start learning about gender discrepancies, because male Pokemon are just more common. It's kind of like how physical is innately more powerful in Pokemon, or just like you see higher attack and defense values and offensive like powers than you do for like special and special defense and stuff. Well, there's just more male Pokemon. You just look at that on starter Pokemon, where the starter Pokemon has 87.5% chance to be male or something, and it's a very low chance of being a female. So you want to technically have female Pokemon if you're using Attract, but if you're not using Attract, then you want to have male Pokemon, but you also want to have female Pokemon, because they might have their female Pokemon. But then you just kind of go back into the male Pokemon, because male are more common. Most people aren't going to be thinking about this, so the male Luxray just has like a 60% chance of getting the rivalry. However, 0.75, that sounds bad. Or is it? Wait a second. Again, this is when you start getting into deep Pokemon. So we go back to Infernape, we go back to Rivalry, and then we change it to a different gender, and then 84% chance to a KO. Like, this is another thing about base powers. Okay, so actually you learn about, like, you learn about type matchups and then like base powers and stuff, and then you learn about deep base powers and the difference between 2-hit KOs and 2-hit KOs, because that's the weird thing. A 120 attack, a 130 attack sounds crazy, but if you're hitting a Pokemon neutrally, it's all a 2-hit KO. 120, 130, no difference. Life Orb versus a plate versus something else. Like, some Pokemon get away with the specs, others don't. Sometimes the numbers just don't change. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're over KOing by a certain percent. If you're doing 90%, it's the same as doing 55% to the enemy Pokemon. So with this, the rivalry gamble kinda worth it. Because in certain Pokemon matchups, it's still a 2-hit KO, at least most of the time. Like, yeah, maybe you take that gamble, maybe you don't. If it's Life Orb Infernape, the trade goes really weird. But outside of that, like, yeah, you turn the ability on or off. We can, not adaptability, Aftermath, because that's not going to mess with anything. So, I mean, like, that's the numbers that it's doing. And then if it does have its ability on, and it's a male, then we're also just kind of looking at, okay, now things just doesn't want to work. There we go. Yeah, and like, even with the rivalry, that's still a 2KO. So like, in some situations, it's always going to be the same, and in other situations, that's what pushes you to that KO chance if you stumble into the male. So, rivalry viable, intimidate viable, guts viable. The hell is this Pokemon? And then, if you want to be disgusting and you don't want to have my respect, there's this moveset. I'm gonna cover everything, kind of, also ignore the -4. Because, like, you can't have a timid or jolly nature if you're going for the Volt Switch, because then you just start hurting yourself for coverage, so hasty or naive. The idea for hasty being you're eating an earthquake and dying anyways, so you might as well die effectively the same, or just not get KO'd by a neutral physical hit, because numbers and math is weird. Christ, like, where are we even more? So yeah, like, here's the thing. I don't respect switch moves like U-turn, Volt Switch. I don't consider those good, except in, like, weird scenarios. It's free damage on the 95 special attack, and in a lot of other Pokemon, I feel like you're sacrificing moveset, or just, you shouldn't. Like, if your goal is to hit and run, your strategy is flawed. So you just need a better strategy where you don't have to be put in that situation. But Luxray is more deliberate. Luxray is Intimidate, Volt Switch. I'm doing damage, I'm going into a beneficial switch, your physical Pokemon is now permanently hurt. Okay. And it also has, like, Choice Scarf options where it's like, nah, I just outspeed your Gyarados and then I one-shot on Discharge. Or I have, like, Fire Fang pressure and Ice Fang hits, and I don't know. Do you run this on the special attack so your Volt Switch Discharge sticks for the most damage, or do you just go attack? That way your Volt Switch Wild Charge, Fire Fang, Ice Fang, is kind of like where we're running here and just looking for those supers and crazy hits and stuff like that. I don't know. But the hit and run damage on this, again, you just outspeed everything and you trade and it gets weird and you make the opponent's Pokemon kind of worthless, especially if you're going into a fat physical Pokemon like Hippowdon. You just get away with things. And then, like, you just come out ahead on damage, and however many times Luxray is able to get away with that, it switches back in. Now that Pokemon's -2, maybe you bait it into, like, a resisted hit or just a really weak neutral hit, and then Luxray is free for Choice Scarf shenanigans from there. It's an idea. I still think that Volt Switch and U-turn are trash, but have maybe some kind of weirdness going. Like, if you do this to me, I'm just hitting a stockpile and then you're losing the game. Like, that's how I see this moveset. So it kind of, again, it limits your strategy, but against, like, if we're getting a Swords Dance meta, I don't know what this does to Dragon Dance. I don't think it's fast enough to counter Dragon Dance super hard, but, like, if things are happening in the game and you just do this, okay, cool. Like, it's an idea. It's some kind of cheese to make Luxray work. And with Luxray's, it needs whatever it can to work. And then we have Guts Flame Orb Facade. Too slow. Too slow to make deliberate Guts work, which is why I'm feeling like Guts is reserved for if the meta throws something weird. Again, like Toxic Spikes, who even gets it and why? Not a lot of Pokemon, not a lot of reason. Like, if Fortress, like, it used to just be Shenanigans Fortress, where you go, like, Stealth Rock, Spikes, Toxic Spikes, Explosion. Brr, cool. Do whatever you want, man. Sturdy, still to play. I haven't even heard any whispers of Fortress, even though it was Ferrothorn before Ferrothorn. Yeah, like, I don't know if Toxic, like, I think players have evolved beyond Toxic Spikes. Even if we ignore the thing about poison Pokemon absorbing the Toxic Spikes, I think we've gone past that. Next, we just need, and also the cool thing about Pokemon Sword and Shield is that we started evolving out of hazards. Like, people just realized the taunt is better than any hazard if you're trying to go for, like, setup or anti-setup, because then you just get it set up against on a free turn on Stealth Rocks. So that's just trash. Don't do it ever. And then there's just, like, some other things going on. So yeah, like, depending on what the meta is, I don't see Toxic Stalling being a thing. Will-O-Wisp maybe becomes, like, popular because of Dragon Dance and Swords Dance being very scary, but there's sometimes a sub just packed next to that, so the Will-O-Wisp starts to not have an effect. Yeah, it's like, chance for 1.5